Once again, having issues with the camera. Footage was lost. Thankfully, from that point over here. So essentially, abbreviated version of everything that was lost. The old Welcome Road is like the crime capital of the zip code. All sorts of drugs and shootings and drug dealers and tweakers and drug junkies on both sides of the river. Quite unfortunately, there's also innocent people kind of caught in between all of that. And it just amazes me, the fact that between all of that, there's this beauty out here. There's this wilderness that's untouched and unspoiled. Oh, there's a deer. Hello, Mr. Deer or Mrs. Deer. Oh, you're still a baby over there between the trees. You know, at times like this, I really wish I was carrying my camera with me with a zoom. But then, of course, by the time you take it out, the animal is gone. And they're heavy too. I mean, my DSLR weighs like 8 pounds. Which is the reason why I never take it hiking with me. Oh, still there. And then to take the camcorder with you is doable, but my camcorder has an issue. You know, I've been kicking around the idea of replacing it, but just too expensive. I have a Canon R700 Vixia, and it has a very nasty purple tint to it. And the LCD screen doesn't show you what it is that you're going to be recording, meaning that you could see the picture, but all the colors are always off. So when you record, you have no idea how it's going to come out until you physically look at it on the editing table. And usually, if you're filming something far away, like let's say those trees over there, it will turn purple. A lot of my kayaking videos had to edit manually, painstakingly, trying to get it out. And to get a proper camera like a Sony A43 or 53, it's quite expensive. Like $750. But that being said, my Canon 70D takes decent videos, but it requires a tripod, so you can't like do this. And its ability to stabilize is non-existent. So I don't know. I see myself purchasing that camera eventually. Look at that. We got a, well, this is all upland, so it's not surprised. But this is a ancient hammock. And for those of you guys that, you know, feel compelled to drive long distances to areas like Highlands Hammock Park, you don't have to drive far. It's right here in your backyard. All you gotta do is look. Despite the fact that a lot of this was clear cut, there's still some old growth forests out here in Tampa Bay. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those days that is hot and humid. Ooh. Look at that. Wow. This tree over here was hit by lightning. All of this peeling bark like so is a tree rejuvenating itself after a lightning strike. More than likely it was charged way back in the day, and it's taken it years and years to get back to its former self. That makes any sense. Oh yeah, off behind this tree line there's people's properties over there. This is their backyard. Well, like I said in the video footage that was lost, quite unfortunately, to get to this beauty they have to drive by a really shady neighborhood. Very disappointing. places like this get held in the families for generations. A lot of those people out here have been here for, I don't know, 300 years or so. At some point in the past, this area was almost entirely for cattle running and grazing and all of that. It was nothing but the woods. And then, of course, the logging has begun. They clear cut a lot of it. Some of it turned into agricultural croplands, others into pasture land. And then, of course, mining industry came through, bulldozed over everything, reclaimed a whole bunch after the mandatory reclamation rule, but a lot of the original areas still remain. And so places like this, it's like a time capsule. It's not uncommon to see like 6 or 7 generations of people living right next to each other. Look at that over there. Pretty. And look at all this morning dew out here on this little growth. Guess camera doesn't do it justice. It's like little tiny thingamajigs covered with individual droplets of water. Looks really interesting. All right. I'm guessing this is the way that the ladies on horses went, because I see fresh horse hoof prints. You know, I mentioned this in the past. Coming out to places like this, it's very calming. You sort of get into the rhythm of things, and just keep the wheels turning and take a look around every once in a while. Maybe you'll see something cool. There must be a river channel on the other side of this. The elevation drops off like way down. And I think a portion of this trail actually leads you to water, if I'm not mistaken. You could see how the terrain is sloping down, which, by the way, I wanted to bring up to in editing of my videos. I noticed that horizon is not always level, and it's less to do with the camera and more to do with the terrain, because I tend to be walking along the river channels and stuff, and so the landscape is naturally sloping down, which makes it really weird to look at, because you're like, something is amiss. But no, that's actually how the slope is. If you look that way over there, for example, it's all flat, and then it's like whoop. Then of course the trail doesn't go there, so although it would be really cool to walk between the trees over there. It's so weird. Like, I look that way, it's all flat, and you look here, even to like naked eyes, it's There's a noticeable slope to it. And the reason why it's weird like that is because technically this area is flat, right? It's not like the mountains, you know. In mountains you would expect that sort of thing, right? But not in the flats. There we go. A little bit more flat. Look at this. Isn't that pretty? Very pretty. If you're a deer prancing about here, it's just perfect. I'd like to prance around here myself if I could help it, but obviously with my injuries, that unfortunately is not going to happen. Even now, I had to take a painkiller. I do my best not to, but sometimes it gets to you. That's kind of the reason why I named my channel More to Live In. A lot of people get by through life, you know, they get into their routines. Calling something more to life means a statement of regret, meaning that your life is not fulfilled. If you call something more to live in, meaning that you actually live the experience. And in my particular case, being so outdoorsy, I get to enjoy all of this beauty. And thing about it is, it's very easy to have that taken away from you. You know, you're coming home from work one day and somebody cuts you off at a stop sign and that's it. Look at that. Whole tree fell down. This is actually very typical for Florida. You know, I've talked about this many times, how the soils here are absolutely horrible. And so the root system barely has anything to grab onto, and the roots, instead of going down like a traditional tree, actually start spreading it out, trying to find nutrients. And inevitably what tends to happen is during heavy thunderstorms, the soil liquefies. The process is called liquefaction, and becomes soft. An entire tree, it doesn't even require wind or anything, that just right in front of you, the tree just goes. Had a tree fall like that on my property. It was a day not much different than today, and now we got like 5 inches of rain and everything turned into a swamp, and it was really soft walking on the ground. And that's all that it took. So somewhere, probably not here, somewhere along this path there's supposed to be a trail leading to the water. Takes you a little bit off to the side, but we're going to do some investigating. This is really weird. You know, I'm so used to stare at the cogon grass while hiking, I almost forget what it's supposed to look like. Look at this. This is what I call perfection. No invasive species at all. Knock on wood. I do see some termite mounds every once in a while, but other than that, nothing major. Yes, like I was saying, if you have an opportunity to live your life, go outdoors, enjoy, because it could all just disappear in a flash. And you know, for me, the pivotal moment was my fateful decision to stop by at a grocery store to buy a half a gallon of milk. That's what it took to change my life in ways I synchronize in 1, 2, 3, sync. Learning little tricks of the trade now. My camera has a record delay, but my voice recorder doesn't. So having to, anyways, quite often look back to my decision. You know, normally when I go on long distance trips, I tend to clear out my fridge. And of course, as it always goes, when you do that, you always begin missing food that you normally eat. And that particular time I was still taking milk with my coffee. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to need a gallon of milk because I'm not going to drink it by Saturday. And that was like Monday or something. And that's all that it took. I told myself, you know, let me just go to the store, pick up a gallon, half a gallon of milk. And I just shifted my schedule by, 15 minutes, and that completely repathed the rest of my life that one decision to do that. Not so nice lady decided that stopping at a stop sign is optional on a road where everybody goes 45 miles an hour. And 1 minute I'm going 45 and the next I'm T-boning, and she goes into all sorts of twirly twirls and spins. And that was it. And the worst part about it is she locked herself in the car and never apologized. And then, you know, when the cops came out and paramedics came out and all of that, her husband, who lives in that neighborhood, came out to come and pick her up. And that look that he gave me, like I took something away from him, like it was my fault. And it never gave me closure. On both ends, him looking at me like that and her not apologizing. So, but that's behind me. Today, I'm out here in the wilderness. Thanks to a lot of doctors and therapists involved along the way. Thanks to all the physical therapy assistants and chiropractors along the way, and nurses and rehab facilities. But I still have my limitations, that's for sure. If you notice, the reason why I keep stopping and taking a look is because the clouds in the sky, which was previously white, blue with beautiful white clouds, turned into a very nasty thunderstorm right behind me. Now it's not gonna rain quite yet, but when it will, it'll be hopefully I won't be out here to experience it. To remember to drink. Wow, look at this. This up here is very much an Alafia floodplain. You could just see everything is channeled out and there's all sorts of meanders and stuff. Everything is soggy. Everything is, look at that. This whole area, when it starts to rain, turns into a giant mess. A mess where you don't want to be inside of, because water more than likely gets way out of the bank and floods everything. I'm looking for evidence. But the thing is, this is not like a perpetual flood zone. This is a, I guess they call it 100-year. Well, no, not technically, but it's a flood-prone area, which then recedes. There you go. So I'm trying to find the water line, just how high it gets. Not seeing it quite yet. And now we're actually going up the hill. Look at this. See, so much uprooting going on. Look at that. You know, hogs are very destructive animals. But on the bright side, in doing so, they're tilling and churning all of this, providing opportunities for vegetative species to come back and plant over there, especially when they start pooping all over the place. All the seeds they eat and things like that. If you come back here in a couple of years, you might see a lot of new growth in there. Might take a little bit though, but have to say, this is actually a very welcome sight, despite the fact that it's about 1,000,000% humid. Not to be in the sun is quite pleasurable. Look at that. They're like excavators. Oh my goodness. They just start rooting everywhere. Up. Well, this is a good example. If we look at the board, so its flood stage is roughly around 2 feet and 3 inches or thereabouts. Look at that, so jungly and interesting looking over there. See this? Oh, this tree's falling apart. I wonder if this is it. Yeah, probably. We're gonna take that road really quick. It should lead us to the water, if I'm not mistaken. But see, like here, this is why it's so confusing out in the trails. This should have been marked red and not yellow. That's the reason why I have an axe to grind with the people that delineated the trails. Because, you know, you have a person that is not that familiar with hiking, and that's how they get lost. Yep, and here there's red marker. See, they've been doing some prescribed control burns out here. There's a lot of cherry trees. This is really quite something. Now you look to the left and to the right, it's nothing but palm trees. And not your typical Disney World palm trees, but typical Florida palm trees. You know, and how they're supposed to look out in the wild. Intertwined with ancient hammocks and things. Really old growth forests. I appreciate the fact that this is very much managed by the state or county or SwiftMud or whoever looks over it. Should be coming up to the river in a little bit. Yep, there we go. Have to be careful out here. Watch out for Mr. and Mrs. Alligator. I think it's very unfortunate that areas like this are virtually impossible on a kayak. You have to, well, bring a small kayak, small enough for you to get out of and drag it over logs and other things. Well, this is it. It would be a really beautiful paddle though, if it wasn't for all the fallen trees along the way and you having to get out and drag stuff over. I've actually done this trip years ago, having to do just that. I don't know if I ever made it this far, but I have been on this stretch of the river And I have done my share of dragging the kayak over logs. But yes, this up here is very much a flood zone. You could see how high the water gets. This is the flood line right here. So this is about almost to my waist, to get you an idea. And that's like typical flooding, not even hurricane level flooding. Look at this. Wow. This is quite something. Have to say, between the hike we did last weekend and this is like 1,000 times better. You got far more things to look at and all sorts of diversity in oh, here's another one. If you look at this tree over here and kind of look at where the scars are on the tree, this was another one that got hit by lightning way back in the day. Here's another one. Could get you an idea of what happens and how the things heal themselves. Look at that. Hello, hello.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, you okay? Good morning.
Good morning.
You're fine. You're fine, baby.
Oh, there you go. Get some weekend dose of entertainment. Kind of funny. The second horse was very reluctant to walk. Maybe it just woke up on the wrong side of the hoof this morning. All right, so we're back to the officially scheduled programming. Continuing on with the trail. if you ever venture out to places like this, be careful of where you plant your feet, because the ground is filled with all sorts of potholes and divots and blivets, which is the reason why I highly advise to get proper footwear for this kind of thing. Now they do make hiking shoes, that go all the way up your ankle. They make low-cut hiking shoes that somewhat resemble sneakers. And then there's the, I guess the hybrid, which is what I wear. It goes probably like a little bit like an inch over your bone, ankle bone or so. Still gives you flexibility and lightness of a sneaker, but gives you some protection if you were to begin rolling your ankle, which I've prevented myself from doing twice now on this hike. And rolling your ankle is bad news bears when you're hiking, because it just turns the entire thing into a nightmare. Which is why trail safety is so important. Have to know your limits, wear proper footwear, bring water, and all of that. I see you, Mr. Cactus. You can see them poking out on the side. Wow, what a sight, what a sight. That is so pretty. Look at that. Everywhere you look, it's just flat and beautiful. Wow. It would be so cool to see just hundreds and thousands of deer or elk or bison or anything of the sort, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, if you want to call it that. Or maybe wild horses. That would be cool. Thankfully, weather is holding up. There's wind that's coming and kind of churning and twirling. So the clouds in front of me, they're actually going out sort of on an angle like this, out towards Tampa. But there's also surface wind that's kind of blowing the opposite way. So as long as it keeps moving, I'm okay. Look at this. Well, what's left of the tree? It's nothing but a Spanish moth. And I've talked about this extensively. It's bad for the tree. Eventually kills it. Oh yeah, there's another one. This over here is actually invasive species Brazilian pepper. You could see how in seeking the sun, if you look through the branches, how it doesn't grow up, it grows outward. See that? That would be cool. Imagine building a tree house over there. Well, this looks somewhat familiar. This is the trail we took last weekend. Synchronizing camera in 1, 2, 3. There we go. So, as you noticed, I abruptly cut the camera, partly because you guys already seen that portion of the hike, and I also went back to record the stretch that unfortunately was corrupted. This camera is just, the horrible reality of it is that you are not going to know what's going to happen to the video footage until it fails to save. Like, it doesn't save on the fly, and there's no way to recover lost footage as you would with a typical MP4 on a GoPro. Like, at least for GoPro, I have a program that allows me to do just that. But this is a proprietary format that's not found in other 360-degree cameras. So obviously nobody invented anything like that for it. And because I'm not taking pictures, of which I'm like this close to resorting, which actually I need to tell you about in a minute. But if it's lost, it's lost, and you don't know. So I've lost about 15 minutes of the hike. Thankfully, only about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes of the actual new place. So I had to go back and record that. But yes, on Friday I had an opportunity to purchase a second Insta 361X, and I meant to contact this lady on Facebook Marketplace that posted it, and then magically it disappeared on Saturday. So I don't know if people bought it. I don't know if she changed her mind, but since Facebook doesn't allow you to look at the removed postings unless you physically saved them or favorited them or something, just couldn't find her. So I was this close to owning two. And what that would allow me to do is actually use one to record a time lapse of photos and then just shove that into Google and allow Google itself to connect it rather than go through this video thing. And it doesn't help the fact that Insta360 themselves have released a horrible bugged version of the app, which it updated automatically, as you might expect, which disabled Google Street View entirely. And again, because of how this whole thing is designed, you don't know that it doesn't work until it processes the file, exports to 100%, and then it fails. It is the most ridiculous thing ever. Like, even in the app itself, it doesn't save anything that it processes. It doesn't save any exports, nothing. Which is really stupid, because it would be so cool to do this in batch, and then if it fails, you just try a completed version at a different time. But no, that would be way too easy. So I was kind of hoping to find alternative methods, and when that Insta360 camera popped up, I'm like, oh hey, and then it disappeared. Very disappointing, because I could put it right next to the one I normally hike with and connect to the same battery bank. Look at that. Stopping in places. There's giant hammocks all around me. Huge trees. So as you can see by the marker, this is a yellow trail. I've finished the red. It may be 4 miles long, but since it's not that hot right now, it's really humid but not as hot. So I was actually able to maintain my pace far more better than I did last weekend, which is the reason why I did it so fast and came back to the parking lot. Caught a few minutes of break since the yellow starts at the parking lot, and then went back to hiking again. Look at that. Look at this. That is so cool. You look at trees like that. I mean, that tree is centuries old. What a wonderful ecosystem. And again, this is literally just minutes away from all the hustle and bustle and busy subdivisions. But as you can see, people don't come out here, because people are too infatuated with doing absolutely nothing. But yes, this trail over here is just under 2 miles long, and if it's gonna stay this flat, it'll be nice and quick. And when I left the trailhead again, I think it was like 10:30. So if I could do this in an hour and a half or so, I should be out and back home before it rains. Look at this. It's like a upside down Christmas tree, almost. Look at that. Normally all those things fall off, but in this case they didn't. It's kind of cool looking. By the way, in case you're wondering, my feet are wet. So much for water-resistant footwear. I don't know if it's from the socks being drenched with dew and percolating down, or whether the dew penetrates the shoes. Now we're at least 2 hours after I got to the trails initially, so a lot of the morning dew have actually dried up, but my shoes being wet nonetheless, there's a lot of slurping going down there, and socks are damp as well, and the soles, so I will definitely have to dry them out before my trip. What do we have here? Have some ancient artifacts from years past. Oh, that thing is old. Look at that. Some sort of tractor thing. All rusted out. This is probably vintage. $1930s or thereabouts, if I had to guess. Red shoulder hook. So, looks like this trail is perpetually backing up to other people's property, which out in this part doesn't give me a lot of comfort. There's a lot of people that shoot in target practice, and so far I haven't hurt anybody. So I think I'll be okay. Yeah, a lot of those people's properties are on the other side of the tree line. Look at that. You know, I always wondered what it would take, what it would be like to have a house against the preserve like this. And I honestly don't know. For a while, look at this. For a while, I was looking to buy a house on the river, and of course that didn't pan out. But in retrospect, thinking about it, a lot of times when you do something like this, whether it's house against preserve or whether it's house on the river, you don't necessarily make use of that. Which is the reason why if you ever do something like this, you have to physically commit, or at least you have to have an unforgettable backdrop of something to look at every single day. There are places scattered across this country that overlook, for lack of better words, magnificence. And I've been thinking about that quite a bit to determine what it actually means to have something like that in your life. I don't know, maybe in the future I'll give it some deeper thought. You never know how this whole coronavirus thing will pan out. Well, so far, unless something changes, I would say that my preference between the blue, the yellow, and the red is the red trail, followed by the yellow, and then lastly being the blue. But it would be really cool to be out here in the morning with all that dew, because now that everything dried up, I'm sure this was covered with like little droplet things, especially with the sun coming up. But without that, I don't know. You could see native grasses out here, so this is also reasonably preserved from, with the exception of Brazilian pepper, of course. What a weird tree, huh? You could see the tree hasn't fallen. That's how they grow. It stretches out in search of sun, and in process blocks out sun for everything else. Oh, that's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe even more. All grown out like a cathedral organ thing. Yeah. Interesting. As we cross yet another floodway. It's like everything is dead out here. And I don't know whether it's because the sun have hid behind the clouds, but it's almost like this is forgotten. You know, whereas everything in the red shell felt alive and teeming with energy, this is somewhat anticlimactic. Watch how I'm gonna turn the corner and there's gonna be a bunch of hippopotamuses over there, proving me wrong. Look at that. I wonder if this is planted over here or whether this is part of natural growth. Look at them. Interesting. Can't go looking at them too much. No, this has to be planted. I mean, look at it. It's look how thick it is. But the thing is, planted them so close doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in the planters, because trees need space to grow. Maybe they're banking on the fact that a lot of them will not survive and just hoping that the ones that do, who knows. Oh, see all of this on the ground here? Okay, this is a perfect example. Florida is nothing but a giant swamp when you think about it. And so when heavy torrential rain comes, turns syncing microphone 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go. And so this over here is a perfect example. This whole thing turns into a giant lake with the storms, which is why you see that. This is somewhat of a familiar territory. This would be, I'm guessing, the third time that I'm walking on this road. The head trail for the blue is there-ish, and there-ish is where I got almost eaten by the dogs on the previous trip. Well guys, I'll spare you the rest of the trip. This is the third time that I'm walking on this trail. So taking this path gets you right back to the parking lot, and this would be a good stopping point. At this point I've done entirety of the blue and then some, entirety of the red and then some, and entirety of the yellow. So this is probably my last trip out here, unless I decide to come back in the future, years in the future. Hey, there's a trail camera over there on the tree. Guessing they're trying to catch critters. And I guess I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in.